Welcome to Courageous Conviction. Remember that Jeff and I record each Saturday 5 episodes. So please hit the like button, subscribe so you catch all 5 episodes. We usually start out with one theme or topic. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes to really understand it. Some things are more sensitive than others right now, what's going on in the world. So hit the like button, subscribe, and let's jump into this video. Give you your last words on that. And then we'll get back to the scripture of how understanding these things helps us to make better decisions in our personal life and in our spiritual life, and how we magnify our calling. How I can understand the border issue, for example, and magnify my calling in the church. How do those relate, Jeff?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. If I had to really look at the whole border issue, and it's complex for a lot of people. It doesn't seem that complex to us because we know that some bad stuff is going on, and there's some bad laws, and there's too much division there where we got to close the border. We don't have to close the border. Right now we just have an issue where there's millions of people coming over the border. What do we do right now as members of the church? Do we reject people that are coming over the border? Are we trying to help people? Are we trying to help people find Christ? I think the latter there of that comment, helping people find Christ is important, and really where I've kind of focused my energy on. When I travel around for my job, I have to drive around and travel a lot. I see indigent people, people living on the streets that are, largely Hispanic. It's not something that we used to see. I remember years ago, people that were Hispanic came over the border and they found jobs. They came here to work. They lived in families. But that has changed now. Now there's, crystal meth and fentanyl and a lot of different kinds of drugs that are coming over the border, with some of these people. And these same groups of people they're living on the streets doing drugs and, whatever else that comes with that life.
Well, what I think you're saying though, too, like in the church, Jeff, you're okay. We need to bring them, the idea, and many of them come already knowing of their Savior. Many of them were born Catholic. We know that, and heck, I've always said that, the good thing about Latin America is they've got Christ plastered all over their buses and their cars, hanging from their mirrors. We don't even do that anymore. And that's why this is happening to us, by the way, going back to the prophecy of why America, as we're talking about in the Book of Mormon, would be overrun by the Lamanites at a later point, is because we would forget God. We're becoming a godless society, and this is the consequence to it. Now, we also know there's a gathering going on. A lot of people don't even know why they're coming.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. They're here.
But so that gathering in that whole group that are coming right now, the people are coming. I know people are coming. They're members of the church. They want to come here and they want to support the Constitution. And I'm trying to help them to get here legally, because I want them here to help. I want that populace here that gets it, right? So they can help their own people get it too. And because here's the problem, Jeff. If we don't have the rule of law, we don't have borders, we don't have Jesus Christ, because it only takes one generation to eliminate anything that had to do with Christianity or our Savior. If this World Economic Forum, the United Nations, this agenda achieves their goals, right? The whole 2050 goal is just that, to remove religion. And these people coming are all part of it because they're easier to manipulate, right? A lot of them are poorer, and they're poor in intelligence as well. Not saying that they're not bagging on them. It's just the facts. And here on this podcast, I want to be able to deal in facts.
Well, and you're right, because many of these people are coming, I suspect, I don't know, for sure, but it looks to me like they're not strong in families, so if they're on the street, they don't have that same infrastructure that previous generations had that could come here and have a family to draw on, a sponsor, that would help them become citizens eventually. They're here illegally, they stay here illegally, and they don't make those concessions to be able to become legal because they can live without being legal just fine. Maybe they're looking over their shoulders and it's not that great. I'm sure that it isn't. A neighbor kid here recently just got deported. He came up from South America, He was like 18 or 19 years old, had a lot of dreams, came up here, but that's another story. They are still deporting some people. He got here and now he's gone. But I don't know how much of that is really happening. Or they're deporting everybody. Um, they're trying to now because of the issue that's happening to the border. I think what I'm really getting at right now is,
Deporting? Jeff, do
yeah,
you know where those people coming across the border right now? They're getting court dates for 2035, 10 years
yeah,
from now, 12 years from now. They can stay here the whole time legally. That's their court dates. That's what everybody's coming across the border now. They're just bringing them in, and that's the process. And I know that's factual,
hmm
and so you hear of the deportations, you have to wonder why that one get deported. Now, apparently, though, there are a few people, the Border Patrol, the immigration, that actually want to do their job and aren't just walking
hmm
lockstep with this administration, right?
yeah,
And here's the other concern, Jeff, if you want to keep going down the rabbit hole a little bit, going one step further, who's allowing all this to take place, right? Those Border Patrol, they're standing there giving high fives to all the illegals coming in where they lifted the fence up, right? To let them come in Texas. Well, what do they do? They want to change the demographic of Texas. They need that state before electoral college votes, right? They need those points, that 270. They need to change the demographics like they did in California. And so it's an invasion like they did in New Mexico, like they did in Arizona. It's the same concept, the same
hmm
thing, same watering down. So what's that mean for us as a free people who want to worship Jesus Christ? It means that is being eliminated and eroded by
yeah,
illegal immigration. And I'm sorry. And those are the facts. And those are things we got to deal with. And it's a hard thing to deal with because we're going to have to be, this all inclusive teddy bear Jesus, this idea, it cannot apply in this situation, or we will cease to exist as a nation and we'll cease to exist as a church, if you will, if freedom is abolished, right? Now, we know from prophecy that we won't get there, but it doesn't mean we don't have to fight the fight.
yeah. Well, there is a rabbit hole, and what do we do with the people that are here? Can we convert some of them? Can people change their ways of thinking once they start getting someplace and having a home or having a family? They start to change their mindset. I think there is some change that's coming, that has been coming with the Latin community, certainly in Texas with politicians and women politicians, that have, you know, gained some notoriety because they're going back to family values and they're changing the mindset, the political scope of Latinos. Um, and we can hope for that. In the meantime, fight the war against, illegal immigration and not making our borders so porous. I think that's important. But what do we do as members of the church? What can we do right now? Um,
Well, first of all, we do have, as a member of church, we need to uphold the rule of law, right? And the rule of law is you have to have borders and you come legally, right? Now, Jeff? I mean, I know when I was in Costa Rica, I was a legal resident. I
mhm.
was in Ecuador, I was a legal resident. I was in Brazil, I was a legal resident. It was a pain. I had to go through it, but I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it cost a little bit of money, but do you think getting up to these borders is free? This costs a lot of money for these people to come to these borders, so they can have a little bit of money too to when they get here to do things right now. And I didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole with the immigration issue. I was trying to get down the idea of the understanding from Section 88 we're talking about right now, 7731, how we can magnify our callings. So in summary, coming back, because I'd like to finish up on with you found about Elder Widso, who also comments on these same verses, right? Is the idea of the knowledge we need to have in order to make decisions as a member of the church. How do I act? Like you're saying right now, what do we do as a member of the church? Well, we need to uphold the rule of law, but by the same token, what do we do with those that are here, right? And those that will still get through, and those that want to come legally. How do we help them assimilate into a culture that allows agency, right? And understanding that. And that's going to come from the doctrine. And so, kind of getting back to summarize, bringing us back in out of that rabbit hole, because that whole immigration thing, we can go down another day and just kind of explore that, the pros and
Mhm.
cons. Because you could say, hey, like I just got to say, the Latinos are more Christian based than we as Americans are,
There,
right?
there, there's a possibility to convert them over to something better, and that would be the easier way, I would think. Is it impossible? I don't think so. I think that people are changing. Their mindsets are changing. They don't want to be told that that our daughters can participate in the same arena of sports with transgender, kind of situations. I don't want, I would pull my kid out of school for that, if she was, in a volleyball class or a team or whatever kind of sport, and that was being infiltrated. And I'm looking at my kids, when they're going to be in high school, whether I even want them to go to high school. I don't think so because of
BYU has high school now online.
they
Just
do.
for that reason. Yep.
Well, and you know what? BYU is still a good school. People will read about being a little too woke at BYU, but my niece is there. She just started her first year, and it looks to me like the faculty and everything that's there on campus is very much, still intact. I think we worry a lot. It doesn't mean that there isn't an infiltration, but I'm an optimist at heart. I kind of think that the Lord is always going to win. I think we do have to do our part. We have to vote, um, and uphold the law, like what you say, Um, but what can we do as individuals? What is our greater good that we can do to be a part of that? I think we have to understand politics, foreign and domestic. We have to understand that there's some perplexion there. We have to understand how to be able to judge those situations because these are the signs of the times. We know that we're at the end. What the decisions we make right now are very important. We're on the same page there.
No, and I think this is what we used to do in elder school, and I don't feel like right now we're discussing this. We're going down this rabbit
Right.
hole, and I'm bringing some information that you probably haven't seen yet. And when, if you saw the same information that I saw, you think, okay, then maybe my understanding was a little bit skewed towards what I'm hearing, right? Instead of what the facts are. And I think that's the point we're trying to make here, really, is in understanding what's really going on with that's how we magnify our college, because we can make better choices as a priesthood holder, even if I'm a mother, right? And in my callings or for my children, what it should. We decided my daughter's in the 4th grade. This is it. No public school. I dealt with it in Latin America, and I pulled her in 2nd grade during the whole pandemic thing, right? What being shoved down their throat, and she missed 2nd grade. We've done nothing but making up work, and this whole agenda now. I'm in a red county, but it's really moving blue real fast. And the school. And here's the thing, and here's another thing we can say. I think to sort of conclude this principal there. I had to go in and talk to her because she took her scripture to school. And I got a phone call saying, that can't happen. The school is run by the people, man. Let's get back to the Constitution. It's not run by the government. We decide what my kids can take to school. Now we have to control that though, because so I went into him. We had this little clash in the beginning that we decided we were going to go full on down. He was like, I'm the authority here. And the bottom line is we have a good relationship now. And they're finally coming along, working, trying to bring my daughter to speak. She comes back first year speaking English in a school. She's spent her whole life in Spanish. When they just threw her in, I said, I think she needs to repeat 2nd grade. That's not my point. My point is this. I went into the principal, and he was saying, can't have scriptures. So that's funny, because there's one side you'll allow to preach their doctrine. And that's what this is now. This is a doctrine. This is an ideology. This is a religion for them. This whole woke agenda is a religion for these people. And they die for it. And they're dying for it. They'll burn things. They'll burn cities down for it. That is a cult. That's a true definition of a cult. So we have this whole woke cultism going on this in our schools. Now, Elder Christopherson was in Argentina some 8 years back, talking about this thing. We discussed it in our last podcast. The point being that because we know what's going on with this whole agenda, we're able to see things in the schools. And then when I took it to the principal, at first he was like, giving us, no, that's not here. We can't talk politics. I said, we have to talk politics because you're trying to tell me I don't have a right as a parent here. That's political because that's politics that took that right away from me. That's not constitutional. That's not the law of the land. So we had this discussion. And I said to him, it's funny because I know I can go in your library. I'm really sure of it. I haven't been in there yet, so I don't know for a fact, but from my sources, I know what's in this curriculum and what's in the libraries, and I can go in there and find things that will promote this whole LGBTQ idea, this whole sex change idea for my 4-year-old in that library. You know what he said to me? I can't let you go in there, but I'm not going to deny what you just said. He admitted
Right.
that's what's in there, but she couldn't bring her
So
scripture.
then why can't you have a Book of Mormon? You know,
Point. And
and
so, what are we supposed to fight for? Go ahead.
we need to fight for the right to have the Book of Mormon. You know, I remember flying on a plane a while back. Had to go for a business trip to Las Vegas of all places. And on the way back, this kid, was sitting in the middle seat. I was sitting in the right seat, and I had my Book of Mormon. I was lining out all the scriptures, that mention Jesus Christ. And he looked at me like with this puzzled look on his face, like I shouldn't have the Book of Mormon with me. But I think a lot of people have this mindset that we shouldn't introduce religion and that it's shoving down their throats. I can't even have a Book of Mormon open with a light on next to a guy that's offended, on a seat. And it's just because we've become accustomed to thinking that it's shoving religion down somebody's throat just because we happen to have a Book of Mormon on us. Maybe that's why your daughter is being picked on at school by the administration, by people that should know better. But she wouldn't have been picked on if she had a book about transgenderism, and being open to the LGBTQ philosophy, because that's somehow other love. I thought the Book of Mormon was about love, but having different opinions, I think, is very important. Being able to be
Sure, but when you're
outspoken about
polarized,
that.
when you're two different poles, there's no common ground. When you want it, the common ground before was the Constitution, and
Mhm.
now that other opinion now is eliminated. That so there's no
One
common ground when we're talking
one is
about
it
we want freedom and agency. They don't want
it's
that.
it's invalidated.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I guess, kind of to conclude this, the points we're trying to make is how do we make a decision then to bring my daughter home and homeschool her if I'm not familiar with what's going on politically, right?
Yeah,
If I'm not
gotta
familiar with
be.
what's going on with the education system, if I don't do my part, and that's how we can magnify our callings as a father, as a husband, in my church responsibilities, right? And remember, salvation's individual, but exaltation's family, right?
Yeah,
That's based on family. So how do I magnify my calling? And if I don't know these things, I can't protect my family. And that's my responsibility as a man and a priesthood holder, right? And these are all sensitive issues. I understand that. But the whole point wasn't to go down those rabbit holes and try to debate those to whether good or bad, right? That's a whole nother time. The idea was the importance of having information and true information. How do we know it's true? Got to hook up with the Spirit. You don't have
yeah.
the Spirit with you, you're not going to know it's true. And we're talking about, you want to come back to your Savior? Then stand for truth and figure out what truth is. Because otherwise, you're just going to be wishy-washy like in a washing machine and just tossed to and fro, and you're never going to make a good, sound decision and change your life.
Make a connection with the Spirit.
Make a connection
Make
with
a
the Spirit.
connection with the Spirit and learn how to discern the difference
In
between
here,
what's right and what's wrong. Find
verse
the
8,
truth.
verse 80, Jeff. Why do
Yeah.
we learn all this stuff? So that ye may be prepared in all things. Then when he talks about, so when I send you, just again here, but he's talking about when I send you, you're able to magnify your calling, whereunto I've called you. Now, remember something, we all have a purpose in here. We all have a measure to fulfill, and then we all have an individual purpose that Father assigned us to do. If we don't have a good basis of education, and I'm not saying you have to go to college. Actually, I've always been an advocate of, hey, I think personal study is cleaner when you're doing with the Spirit because you don't have all these secret combination agendas built into it, right? Like the universities today is BYU. Here's a statistic I heard from one of my sources. The BYU right now is about 25 to 30% left leaning. No, that's not true. 50% left leaning, but 25 to 30% that are actually adamant pro woke. The other ones are that we got to be all inclusive idea, right? So you got about the other 20%. Then you got the other 50% that's more traditional. Right? So even at BYU, which was probably one of the most conservative colleges to defeat this whole woke agenda right now, is 50% contaminated. And that's the stats. That's the statistics that I heard probably within the last 4 weeks. Right. And that was from a tenured BYU professor who was just laying out, well, here's the stats on what we actually are dealing with at BYU. Right. And so we have that infiltration. We have to understand that. How are we going to recognize that? For example, let's go into, last thing I'll shut down on this one, but we're doing Book of Mormon studies, right? I thank you for being with us on Courageous Conviction. Remember, there's 5 episodes each week that we put out. We have to go down a lot of rabbit holes, so stay with us, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and don't miss tomorrow's episode on Courageous Conviction.